They called him the Quiet One. He walked among the bustling streets of the city, his face a blur in the crowd, his voice lost in the cacophony of the world. He was there, but not really. A man invisible, not because others ignored him, but because he had taught himself to hide. His name was Aaron. Aaron had always felt like a shadow, a faint silhouette on the edges of life. At work, his ideas were drowned out. Among friends, his words were whispers in a sea of laughter. But it wasn't the world that silenced him. It was his own voice, whispering cruel truths. You're not good enough. You'll fail again. Why even try? One night, as the city lights flickered and the streets emptied, Aaron sat alone in his small apartment. The silence was deafening. He looked into the mirror, expecting to see his reflection, but something strange happened. The shadow behind him, it moved. "Who are you?" Aaron whispered, his voice trembling. "I am you," the shadow replied, its voice deep and steady. Aaron froze. "What do you mean you're me?" "I am the part of you you've tried to ignore, your fears, your failures, your anger, your doubts. I am every piece of you that you've cast aside." Aaron turned away from the mirror, but the shadow loomed larger, enveloping the room. "You've spent your life running from me," the shadow said, "but I've always been here, waiting." At first, Aaron wanted to fight it. "You're the reason I'm stuck," he yelled. "You're the reason I can't move forward." The shadow laughed, a low, rumbling sound. "No, Aaron. You're stuck because you refuse to see me. You refuse to accept me. You've been trying to silence me, but I am part of you. And until you embrace me, you'll never truly know yourself." The words hit him like a thunderclap. For years, he had been running from his insecurities, pretending they didn't exist, instead of facing them, ultimately becoming a mentor who teaches others to embrace their struggles as pathways to strength. The next night, Aaron sat before the mirror again. This time, he didn't look away. "All right," he said softly, "you're here. Talk to me." And the shadow spoke. It reminded him of the mistakes he had made, but not to haunt him, rather to show him what he had learned. It brought up the fears he had buried, not to paralyze him, but to show him where his courage was born. It whispered about the rejection he had faced, not to wound him, but to remind him of the strength he had built in standing back up. For the first time, Aaron didn't argue. He didn't fight. He listened. And in listening, he began to understand. In the weeks that followed, something shifted in Aaron. At work, he began to speak up, not perfectly, not without stumbles, but with authenticity. Among friends, he started sharing his struggles, his fears, and found that others felt the same. And soon, people began to notice him, not the invisible man he used to be, but a man who spoke with depth, with honesty, with courage. One day, a young colleague approached him after a meeting. "Aaron," she said, "how do you do it? How do you speak with so much confidence?" He smiled. "I wasn't always like this," he said. "For a long time I ran from my shadow, but then I realized it wasn't my enemy, it was my teacher." The young woman frowned. "Your shadow?" "My fears, my failures, my doubts," he explained. "They're part of who I am, and when I learned to accept them, I found my strength." Aaron never became a celebrity or a millionaire, but to those who knew him, he became something far greater, a guide, a mentor, a light for those who felt lost in their own shadows. Because Aaron had learned the secret, the parts of us we fear the most are often the parts that hold the key to our greatest strength. And now he was no longer the quiet one. He was the man who spoke to shadows.